Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Tie In. Today, we're speaking with Paul Schurink, the co founder and CEO of Showpower. And they're the global leading power provider for large concert battery setups and large concerts, generally speaking, where they piloted their technology with Coldplay on their tour. So we're excited to speak with them.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be interesting because I feel like if we can get down to the nitty-gritty of how to power like the biggest events, we can understand how to or feel more confident powering other events that, aren't as big. So I'm excited to hear what Paul has to say. Um, I see his name a lot.
Hmm.
And I feel like he and his team are really behind this momentum in music to power big main stages with battery power.
They're definitely making a splash, and but they've been predominantly in Europe,
Hmm.
where they're with the Coldplay tours, and they're working here in Europe. Obviously, Paul's from the Netherlands, and however, when I did see them and met them in person, it was in New York, and they had brought the Coldplay battery system to North America, so it's in the United States right now, and is powering the Global Citizen stage. So I think it's going to stay here for a little bit and start to get some traction in North America as well.
That's awesome. And for the listeners, we have a behind the scenes of that battery system.
Hmm.
You, Mark, were in the field
Hmm.
behind the scenes at Global Citizen and have the whole like talking to Paul, talking to his team, have the
Yeah, two
whole
parts.
two parts. So take a look at that.
For all
And
you energy nerds out there, you'll get a kick out of it.
yeah, yeah, quite fun. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what Paul has to say. Let's dive in.
Me too. Hello, we're here today with Paul Schurink, CEO of Showpower, the company behind the clean energy revolution in music. You guys have been powering big acts like Coldplay and their main stage, and we're looking forward to hearing from you about more details on everything that you guys have learned and your power systems.
Yeah, Paul, it's
Yeah.
it's really great to finally meet you. I know you and Mark have met out in the field behind the scenes at Climate Week and maybe other places, so it's nice to have you. Um, it's we love origin stories to start off because we feel like a lot of folks are either trying to get started or they want to up their game. And you're the expert. You've been doing this. We want to hear how you got into this, got started with clean tech and powering these big stages. So can you, first of all, welcome, and then can you help us understand a bit more about your story?
Sure. Yeah. Mark and Zina, thanks for having me on your podcast. Very pleased to speak to you. Yeah, well, it all started a long time ago. In fact, since the early 90s, I was working on generator rental companies, powering all kinds of events, including Olympics and all those kinds of events. But in 2003, I already saw that the future of fossil fuel and fossil fuel power systems was coming to an end. So at that time, I already started looking to alternatives. At that time, I did a study on a technical university in Delft, and in my master thesis, I studied the economics of running a fuel cell generator on hydrogen, and how that should compare to the cost of a diesel generator. Um, and when working on that, I was, let's say, getting into the clean tech industry at an early stage. And from fuel cells, I started working on biogas, and I also started working on batteries, hybridization of diesel generators. Yeah, and this is how it all started. So at the end, it's a 20 years journey, resulting to where we are now.
Fresh new face 20 years later. I always love to say that. Uh,
Yeah.
and then maybe tell us a little bit about Showpower. I know we've got an in the field or from the field segment of Showpower behind the scenes at the Global Citizen Concert in New York. But you guys have been a lot more active than just that one show, and maybe give a little bit of background about your work and your work with Coldplay as well.
Yeah. So yeah, as let's say, starting in the clean tech and in batteries, I already run in 2013 the first event on parts of events on batteries, and in 2015 we run the first complete area, including show, bars, and everything on batteries. Um, and we've always been, let's say, on the front of this technology and implementing it in at festivals. And while being for a number of years in the business, your market is growing. You get a bit, let's say, on the top of the market, and there everyone knows each other. So it's a very small world over there. And during the pandemic, we were approached by Luke Howell. He's the sustainability director of Coldplay. And he told us that Coldplay was preparing the Music of the Spheres tour. And as Chris Martin stated before, I think in 2019, that they didn't want to go on tour unless they've tackled the emissions. So they were aiming for 50% reduction of the emissions compared to the previous tour. And Luke asked us if we could help Coldplay with the reduction of the emissions as a result of their energy. So what we first did was, for us obvious, is looking to the show design, to the used fixtures, to the used equipment, and we started to work with creatives to reduce the energy consumption of the show, because the most sustainable energy is the energy you won't use.
Right.
It sounds very obvious, but this is really the first step you always have to make. And of course, at the beginning, the creators of the show, they were in a way not amused because they are outstanding creatives, and they don't like to get interfered by technicians who try to reduce emissions. However, at a certain moment, they really got it. They saw that it was more fun, and it gave some extra push to their creativity to develop and design top class shows, but without huge energy consumption. So that was the first step, and they went very well. And compared to the previous show, the show of the Music of the Spheres is consuming almost 50% less energy. And that was a huge advantage, because if you don't need so much energy, it's also easier to provide that energy with renewables instead of the traditional diesel generators. So that was a very important step. And then the next step was, okay, how can we source this energy with renewable power, but then in a way that it fits the crazy scheme of a world tour, traveling from country to country. And that was another interesting question, because for us it was without any doubt that we needed a battery system in place, because if you have a battery system, in a way you win time. So if you have the batteries charged, you have power available for a show, but you need to charge them with renewable energy.
Mhm.
And if you are on a world tour, you are in so many different places. Sometimes it's very easy, but sometimes it's almost impossible. Um, but that's, let's say, that was for us, that there was no doubt that we should work with battery systems. Um, and while developing that, and also looking that of seeing that tourable means that it should be modular, It should be small parts. So just putting lots of batteries in a 20 or 40-foot container is not a durable option. So we made all kinds of separate parts. We had the inverter parts and we had the battery, the energy storage systems parts. And they are all very modular. So we can put a number of inverters in parallel together, and we can put a number of battery units together. And by this way, we are able to model the power and the energy needs in our system, which is in line with the energy and power and energy consumption of the show. And by doing this with all these separate parts, we could also build in redundancy because this is key for, let's say, shows like a Goldplay concert. Redundancy is key. They will never run a system which has one single point of failure. And while inverters are very reliable equipment because they don't have moving parts, if you run a show with one inverter, you still have a single point of failure, and that's not acceptable. So we designed a system which exists of more inverters, and they all run in parallel, and also in a way that no matter what, if one of the inverters fails, the remaining inverters will always remain powering the show. So it indeed is full redundant system.
And
Okay.
modular, right? Just to make sure everybody's like, you basically can tack on more modules depending on the show that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And then when the tour started, was in Dallas in a Cotton Bowl Stadium. We came with our system, fresh manufactured in Europe, in the UK and in Germany. But the commissioning was not finished yet. We were very on a very high time pressure. There was also had to deal with COVID or the after COVID. So lead times were very long, but also transportation was a problem just after COVID. So the system arrived in Dallas, and we were still commissioning it. And we had a 6 weeks period in Dallas to finish commissioning. And then Rob Scully, Tim Benson, and I, the three who designed and developed this system, sat together in a hotel in Dallas. And we were in the middle of commissioning. And as this was a unique system, a lot of the senior tour managers of Live Nation, because Live Nation is producing the Goldplay tour, they came to look what was going on with Goldplay and what their power system looked like. And these are all people, they are touring for 40 years already, or even longer, their whole life. And every individual of them said, well, this is the future of power, no doubt. So they immediately got it, and they had no doubt that this was the future of powering those kinds of events. And of course, for us, that was obvious, but hearing that from people who are, let's say, the industry veterans, that's very, very good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were in Dallas together, we decided to turn the project into a product. So from a single off project for Goldplay, we wanted to turn it into a product, and come from a project into a company to scale it up. So yeah, we all three sit together. We made this decision. And then the next question was, okay, now that we decided to start a company, how should we name it? And where in the past, when I was working for the generator rental company, I was working together on the Olympics with GE Energy Rentals. And GE Energy Rentals acquired Showpower, a brilliant company with all technicians, and they had the first diesel generators dedicated for shows running in parallel. And we are now a dedicated company run by specialists, but now we run batteries in parallel. And when GE acquired Showpower, they got rid of the name. They just didn't use it anymore, and it was available. and we saw that, okay, now that we are in a way with the same focus, with the same view, but now with the new generation technology, we thought that, well, this is really how we can come up with the revival. And yeah, for us, the brand Showpower was the way to show our ambition, and also the way how we think we can push this in the market as being the leaders in this particular market segment.
Wow. So you just that's you've got my mind turning. I thank you for all this. This is really fascinating. I'm curious if so just to kind of unpack a bit about what you said early on you started working with the creatives to figure out what the show was going to look like, what they were planning, that kind of thing. Can you give us any kind of timeline on that? Is it show by show, or do shows have similar elements? How far out from the concert date, like if you're backing it out, when does that initial conversation with creatives start?
Yeah, well, this for the music of the spheres, let's say for the first tour leg, so that's let's say 1.5 year, they design one show, and that's completely custom built. So all the elements are completely custom built, um, and that stage, that show is touring from city to city.
Mhm.
That's unchanged. And then let's say after in the second leg, they do some changes, also some new songs, and the design will be yeah, updated.
Mhm.
So let's say it's we first look to one design, and that's let's say the basic, which is still also on the current tour. So it has a different element, and they are used every time. So it's not show by show, but it's really the show who is moving from city to city.
Got it. Got it.
And the process is, let's say, I don't know, because when we were getting in touch with them, they were already I would say almost finished, at least on the design and let's say the real creative process. So it
Mhm.
was really when they turned the creative elements of the show into hardware. What type of fixtures do we need? What will be the LED screens, and what brand or what types will we use? And
Mhm.
there we could help them, because also in the past we developed an online software tool where we can, based on an inventory, which is part of the tool calculates exactly how much power and energy for a show will be used. And when we were designing this tool, we developed a database. So all the fixtures, all the speakers, every single piece of equipment which is used on events is in that database. And we do since, let's say, 15 year on all shows we work on energy logging. So we know exactly what the real energy consumption of these fixtures is. And this is, let's say, all part of this software tool. We call it MyZap. And all that knowledge and experience we gained when building that software tool is used when talking to creatives to see, okay, you've used these type of fixtures. This type of fixtures are more energy efficient. Can you make the same effect with it? And can you make it work? And this is a bit how it works. So we absolutely don't get involved in the creative process. We are technicians. We are absolutely not creative, but we can ask questions and we can suggest alternative equipment. And then it's up to the creatives to see if they can use it or not. And of course, it always, at the end, the creative, they are responsible for making a world-class show. So they always have, of course, the last word, and they make the final decisions.
Paul, who do the creatives use the tool, the online tool, or you work with them? They send you a list, or
Yeah.
do you give them access to the tool, and who else has access to the tool then to input the information?
Yeah, at that time we were also still developing the tool. However, we could have given them access to the tool, but to be honest, I didn't think about it.
Mhm.
So the process was indeed they send us a list. Okay, these are the design drawings, and this is the list of equipment. And we looked at it and we gave some alternatives back. But it was really nice that at a certain moment the creators really start liking it, and they came up with we can also use these lights because they have their own battery, so you don't need to power them at all. And so they really also started to come up with even better suggestions that we made. And that's really the fun part. Then you see, okay, now we're working together. We all have the same idea. We have the same point with which we want to reach, and that was really fun.
Yeah. And to be clear, like this is this collaboration with creatives and whatnot is for like big mega concerts, not, not small festivals, but this is like big stages and main stages because that's what we've been hearing is like, folks will say, "Oh, we've powered everything else kind of in the field around the stage, but not the stage." And you guys
Mhm.
are powering the stage, like all the lights, all the cool creative stuff going on, as you just, talked about. So that's really a new dynamic that, at least, in this revolution, I'd like to say, of sustainability in music.
Yeah, yeah, and to be honest, it's not through that. Let's say the process of energy reduction is not only done by, let's say, the very big shows, also by the smaller shows, and it's just a bit at what time do we get involved? But very often, if we get involved once, they also want us to work on the next edition of the show. Um, and it's really a process. So you really have to start learn each other to know and to respect, and then you build, let's say, together the trust of improvement. And it's almost impossible to do it from a 0% to 100%, but it's always a process. So I would say in general, in 3 years, we can reach the maximum. And even on the Gold Play show, because what I said, after each leg, they have a pause and they change something to the show and and they start with the next leg. And even in this process, we constantly improve. On one end, of course, the battery system is constantly improved. So let's
Mhm.
say the way to operate it and even let's say the reliability is improved because yeah, we're also learning. So even with Goldplay, although we had a long preparation period, we are still improving. And this is how it should work.
Amazing. Um, Paul, one thing I loved about meeting you and your team in New York was how open you were as well about the systems, about how you work with the creatives and how you're working with the rest of the production. So how does that go when you work with other rental companies and other groups? Are you complementary to their work, or do they view you as a threat? Because that's a big thing that Zena and I come across as well. There seems to be some resistance to this type of change, especially for an incumbent. However, you guys seemed very open. There was a ton of groups of people touring your setup from different power system companies and generator companies. Um, so yeah, so how do you guys view your position in the market with vis-a-vis as of the other generator groups?
Yeah, well, basically, we work very well with them together, with all of them. I also come from the generator rental world,
Mhm.
and so does Tim. So we've been, let's say, also on their side. Um, we don't face so much competition because the market is huge, and we are not a show power. We don't aim to do all the shows. Let's say our ambition is really to change the industry and to show that it can be done differently. And that means that if you want to change the industry, you cannot do it by yourself, but you have to do it together with other ones. Um, And I said being open to other companies that work so much better. For instance, I did last summer Lollapalooza, the main stage in Chicago. I was hired by CES. I met some people from CES, and of course, also in the past, we met each other. And they wanted to do the main stage of Lollapalooza on batteries. And at that time, we didn't have the batteries of Coldplay available because they were on tour. So CES hired batteries from Atlas Copco, and let's say, I made the whole power plan. I operated the batteries, and while I was doing this, I was sharing all this information with the guys from CES. As said, the market is huge, and I think, let's say, when it's really when the stakes are very high, when there, let's say, a power outage is absolutely not an option, and that's, let's say, like the halftime show of Super Bowl, opening ceremonies of Olympics, all those types of events. Um, let's say that's the top class, and people will never take any risk. And this is, let's say, the market we are aiming for. And there it's so much better to collaborate with these companies, because then you see, okay, these guys have the experience, they have the knowledge, and so they rather prefer to work with us together in order to make sure that the show runs smoothly on renewable energy rather than avoiding us. And I think also, if you are open to another one is also pretty open to you, and you create an open atmosphere. And where, if you really see everyone as a competitor, yeah, at the end, no one is getting better for it, also not for us. And of course, we're also relatively small. So other companies don't see us as a threat at this moment. And let's say, by showing that we are, let's say, we are also not seeing them as a threat, but we want to work together with them. I think it's an attitude which also fits sustainability. So sustainability is there to together improve the world and make a better world. And I think this is also the way how we look to this business. We have to do it together, and we have to do it quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned something earlier that I want to touch on again because it's something that comes up in my world a lot. Mark, I know you've heard it as well. This concern about reliability. Can it power? We're talking about live events, live broadcast. We cannot have power go down. And you mentioned earlier, that this was obviously something that you take very seriously. You have redundancies. How have you navigated those conversations with folks about reliability?
Uh, Well, I think this is typically something which you build up in many, many years. So we've proven that we already powering over 20 years events, festivals, stages with batteries. And we also started small, and we went bigger and bigger. Um, so on one hand, we fully understand the show. We understand also the position of an organizer and a production manager. But we also understand, let's say, the possibilities of technology. And let's say we are really, yeah, I think in a way we are pretty much the specialist on this in this field. So we know exactly what we do. So for instance, the Coldplay system, we designed it ourselves. We know exactly how it runs. And in the beginning, in the first year we were running Coldplay show, we didn't run all the shows on batteries. Sometimes we had some problems with the system. Sometimes was some communication problems. But before it, let's say, before the show was about to start, and hours before the show, we said, well, at this moment we have this and this problem. It's not responsible to run the show on batteries only. So either we run a diesel generator in parallel as a running backup, and sometimes we even didn't run the batteries. And let's say, I think this is also, if you feel yourself comfortable and you know what you're doing, of course, we want to do all shows on batteries. And last year we run all the shows, 33 shows in a row on batteries. So the system has really improved. But being a professional also means that you can tell to a production manager, well, we have this and this problem at this moment. We will not run the show on batteries. Let's do it and better. Let's say, I said we are in a process. Everything is a process. And the goal of Coldplay is also to reduce the emissions with 50%, not with 100%. And of course, everyone wants 100%, but that means that if you if your target is 50%, it gives you some space to say, okay, let's not take any risk. And I think this is also showing professionalism of our team and the production management team to say, okay, we fully agree, we understand, and let's go for zero mistakes because that's always
Mhm.
the highest goal.
Mhm.
And and I mean, so with your experience powering the Coldplay and these other huge stages, that's leading up to doing like the high profile events like the Olympics or Super Bowl or World Cup. And you mentioned that those can have zero screw ups. Um, are you already have you powered any of those events yet, like Olympics, World Cup, Super Bowl, or that's you're
Well,
working
not
towards those?
yeah, not with batteries. However, yeah, I think also Global Citizen was a nice
Mhm.
let's say showcase because there was also globally broadcasted, so a power outage there would also have a major impact. And let's say yeah, we've done apart from this also some other jobs, let's say below the radar. I know you're currently in Rotterdam, and
Mhm.
just half a year ago, we run a huge event of BMW where we used the battery system to be completely charged with solar power, and that power was used to charge electric minis. So all kinds of user cases we already run as a system. So we know that we are now ready, and let's say all these lessons learned are now transferred into the second generation, which we are currently, let's say, we are finishing the design and we are just about to start building them. Um, so yeah, we are absolutely ready for that. Also at the Global Citizen event, we already spoke to Mr. Infantino, the CEO of Viva, and he's also really interested in using our technology for the World Cup in 2026 in the US. So yeah, this is a definitely type of jobs we are targeting because I think this is exactly where we can change markets.
Yeah.
We're also in close contact with the Clean Energy Initiative from Disney and Netflix. So also to have this technology brought into the broadcast and film industry. So yeah, that's our target markets, and then we really aim for the top to show that it can be done. And this is it sounds stupid, but this is how it works. If you can show it on the biggest events, then the smaller events, which are still
Yeah.
huge, they have no reason to say, okay, in our event it doesn't work.
Right.
So it's also just a way of, okay, we prove it on the most prestigious event, and then we show, okay, this technology can be used if you know what you're doing. The technology is there, just need the right expertise, and there you go.
Hmm. Hmm. And when when I talk to folks, and they hear big names, big studio names or whatnot, there always seems to be the sort of pause and say, yeah, but we're a lot smaller. We can't afford that. We don't have all the money to pay for that. So can you talk a little bit about cost around all this? Because I feel like when people hear big names like Coldplay, they might say, yeah, well, they can do that because they have a lot of money. Um, and and that might seem like a barrier for other people. So can you talk to us about the cost of this versus maybe the cost of, running that traditional diesel generator set?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So indeed, if we look to the Coldplay case, all the developments are paid by Coldplay, and without Coldplay and both their money, but also their giving us the trust of doing this on their show. But there was no show power. There's no doubt about it. It's really they helped us to establish this, and they are really proud of it. So in a way, we are the legacy of their doing this. So indeed, on this scale, for a first time being, you need something like this. But the technology by itself, if you run a battery system in a proper way, should not be more expensive than running a diesel generator. If you run a diesel generator, of course you have to rent off the diesel generator itself, the fuel, service, etc. And if you can run a battery system from the grid, then in Europe you already have the same cost. So if I run a festival in the Netherlands on a grid connection, it can be a small connection with a battery. The cost of the total energy are the same as I run on a diesel generator. So only if in Europe, if I don't have a grid connection at all, and I still need to run a diesel generator to charge the batteries, the costs are slightly higher. But in the Netherlands, the market is in Europe, I would say the market is a bit more developed. There are lots of new companies coming with batteries, and also the prices from batteries has come down. So the costs are getting there. But the cost for a liter fuel in Europe are, I would say, almost 3 times higher than in the US. But on the other hand, we also know that it's just a matter of time that prices for diesel will only go up, where the prices of batteries will go down, but also the prices of the electricity from the grid will also come down. So it's just a matter of time. But first, what you need is you have to develop a market. And I think this is also good that if you develop the market, there are always some front runners like what Lollapalooza did with Live Nation, and there are some large events. They really, and also Global Citizen. Global Citizen also had some extra costs, and they were very lucky that they could find a partner who was helping them with some extra sponsoring, so they could afford that cost. And what I also saw in Europe is that you always have these front runners. They pay a bit extra, but on one hand, they are mostly organized who can afford to pay a bit more. But also, if you are a front runner, you can market it in a proper way. So you can find sponsors for it to say, and sometimes it's an electricity company. You say, okay, look, we are helping here to provide renewable energy to this festival. And this is, let's say, this extra marketing premium is for a limited time, but this really helps technology to get into the market and attract more companies to step into this market. And then it's just a matter of time, and it's going pretty quick. And also seeing what's happening last year, I would say in the US, it's just a matter of time. People are getting ready to it, and sometimes it's a bit more expensive, but also there are lots of parts on the festival, like on production areas, where you run a diesel generator normally for 4 weeks. It's so much easier to make that cost effective to replace the diesel generator by a battery. So it's really getting there, but I think it's a combination of production managers who need to feel comfortable with the technology, but also suppliers, and then people who know how to operate it. Because if you just add a battery to an event, it's absolutely not a guarantee that you save fuel and energy. You really need to make a plan to see, okay, how much power, how much energy are we going to use here, and what will be used, and how are we going to source that? And then you make an efficient and therefore also cost-effective solution. And this needs some time to grow, and this is also, I think, this is where we take our role, and this is also why I'm a lot in the US, and I think next year the same, just to train people to let them see, okay, this is how it works, this is important to know, and then it's just a matter of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that the music business was a little bit slower to take this because of the points that Zena had mentioned around don't touch the main stage. But I think music and live events have a tremendous opportunity here to really showcase this because you've got the star, the talent, the creative talent that can literally amplify the message across tens of thousands, if not millions of people at the same time. So I really think that's
Absolutely.
amazing. And so, but just to double click on sort of the cost and emissions, when we were doing it portable, we actually determined and found through the data that we could reduce fuel and emissions by anywhere from 70 to 90%.
Yeah,
Right. So then that's a fuel savings of
yeah,
70 to 90%. But on top of that, you've got your emissions savings, right? So for roughly every liter of diesel that's not burned, you're saving 2.3 kilograms of CO2. Um,
correct. Yeah.
so how important is that awareness and calculation in your communicating to the the sort of production group and Live Nation, for example? Are they calculating that, taking that into account, or is that something that you're presenting, but you're like looking down the road? Yeah, how important is that piece?
That is already important, and it's getting more and more and more important. Now, companies are mandatory to give every year their ESG reports. So, how are, let's say, how are their emissions? And we see more and more companies, and also music or festival companies who work on sustainability policies, where they really set targets. Okay, we want to reduce our carbon emissions by 50%, let's say in 2030. And then if you have this emission of this goals, you have to start now. So it is really important. It's really, let's say, it's not anymore up to the production manager. It's really on the board of these companies. They set these goals, and everyone has to meet them. So it's really getting more and more important.
Right, because
And
of
and
public reporting
yeah, yeah.
regulations.
Yeah,
Right.
but even investors see this. I see also some of the rental companies. They from their investors, they need to invest in clean tech technology. Other investors will get out of this company because it's too risky for them. So this
Hmm.
is also what you see. So it's really, there's no doubt that this is the way to go. The only thing which can be changed is the speed, and that's, let's say, more a political thing. But from technical point of view, and also, let's say, for the longer term, there's no doubt that this is the way to go. And everyone I speak agrees with this. No one says, well, we will remain running on diesel generators for another 100 years. No one is telling me that.
No,
Mm.
no. What's your this question comes up quite a bit when even on Zena and I we did a live podcast with Andre as well, and the question came in the audience: what's your take on hydrogen generators? And then do you see them ultimately replacing the diesel generator and hybridizing with the batteries for primary
Uh,
generation?
Well, yeah, I built two in 2008 and 2009 when I was graduating for my technical university. And I run one in 2009 on the Lowlands Festival, one of the biggest festivals in the Netherlands, and in 2010 on Glastonbury Festival in the UK, biggest festival of the world. And I would say from a technical point of view, it's very good. It's very reliable. Also, the footprint and the weight is, let's say, sometimes even better than the diesel generator. Also, the safety issues are very good manageable if you know what you're doing. The only thing is that the costs are pretty high, and the reason for that is that if you want to produce sustainable hydrogen, and you transport the hydrogen and then put that hydrogen into energy, the total process is pretty inefficient. So you lose up, let's say, 40 to 60% of the energy in this whole process of conversion. because it's a bit technical, but you start with electrons, then you put that energy into molecules, and then from molecules into electrons. And that's, let's say, just a physical law that comes with losses. And that means that let's say the renewable electricity which you use for renewable sustainable hydrogen is not free. So you lose quite a lot in the process, and that comes with a cost. However, on the other hand, is we don't have a silver bullet to tackle sustainability. We need everything. So currently in Europe, and particularly in the Netherlands, we have let's say a real urgent a problem with nature. That means that the levels of nitrogen oxides are too high, and this has a very dramatic effect on the biodiversity. And nitrogen oxides exist either from cows, from cattle, but most of them is using internal combustion engines, so cars, all kinds of engines. Um, so there are areas in the Netherlands where you cannot add anything of these nitrogen oxides. And if you need power, then the only way is either bring it with batteries, but transporting energy in a battery is not really the way to go. And then hydrogen can be an option to solve that. But there are also other user cases where hydrogen can be an option, and fuel cells like on a very large transport and look a bit like ships, etc. Um, and as said, also for generators running on hydrogen, there is a market. Absolutely, it's not, let's say, definitely not the solution to replace diesel generators by hydrogen, but it's part of the puzzle.
Mhm. I think if we keep that in mind, like this is all part of the puzzle. There's going to be a mix,
Mhm.
multiple technologies and solutions, and that's part of the game here is figuring out just that optimal mix. I
Yeah,
think as we go, right? Um,
exactly.
well, Paul, I just love what you guys are doing. This is really groundbreaking and trend setting, and you're pushing and it's wonderful to see you guys out there in the field doing it. And so one question that we ask all our guests at the end is if you were to create a new playbook and guiding principles around sustainability in entertainment, what would be first on your list?
Um, we don't have a technical problem. We have a problem in how we handle stuff and not only on energy, but also on waste, also on food, all the teams. We really have to rethink our behavior. How do we handle stuff? And if we can change our behavior, if everyone is understanding about the impacts of what he or she is doing, we are very that's the first way to go. So also just in our energy world, reconsider the use of energy. If I walk on any festival, doesn't matter where it is, I see so many electrical equipment, whether it are lights or ovens or whatever,
Mhm.
they are turned on, but they're not used.
Yeah,
Yeah.
middle of the
So
day.
yeah,
You see the
yeah.
lights,
So
all the lighting in the parking lot, all operating 24 hours a day.
exactly, and this really sums up to 40% of the total energy consumption of a show. And I even see it more in the film industry. They build up a set. That's also a very high professional job to have that exactly every lamp, everything is let's say set up to the millimeter. And then they all leave it on and they leave for a week and then they come back to do the taping. And the whole installation is in operation for a week when no one is there. And this is really this is something we need to keep in our minds. And the same counts for whether you look at waste. Why should it be used single use? So I think this is really uh, everyone should be more aware and see what they are doing. And then, yeah, we need some technology, but the technology will be there. But first, change your behavior.
Change your
Absolutely.
behavior. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty key. One of the things I think about a lot is the psychology of it all. Like most of this is psychological and, like maybe 80%, let's say, and then 20% is like everything else, which is like, the technology and,
Yeah,
fitting, various systems together and all of that. So if we can get over that sort of that hump of behavior and, psychology, we can roll clean tech and really reduce emissions across the board.
yeah, yeah.
So
But on the other hand, just to point out, we really need to help the people who have the knowledge need to help the other one because there's
yeah,
really
Yeah.
no one in the world who wants to be unsustainable by purpose. No one wants that, but it's just people are not
Hmm.
aware. So you have to
yeah,
help them to make them aware and don't judge them, but just help them. So
Yeah.
always when I start working on an event, I never look back. I always look forward. Okay, how can we do this better? And what has been in the past, I don't care
yeah,
because
Yeah.
then people they feel that they need to be defensive, but
Yep.
there's no need. That's
But it's a natural response, right? I mean, it's like if you
yeah,
don't know about it or you're not aware how to do it, you're going to fall back onto your old
of
patterns and then you're
course,
going
yeah,
to get defensive. What
yeah,
what I love about you and your team is that you have really taken a different approach, and I love that. It's very open, it's very welcoming, and I think it's a testament to you and Tim and Lawrence as well. And you guys have been so welcoming, right, for everybody, and want to show people how it's done. And I think that's going to be the biggest defining factor in your success as well. Obviously, the batteries were amazing, but it's that willingness to work with everybody and insert yourself as the global leader in empowering large mega events. And I think that you're going to do it. I look forward to seeing your gear at the World Cup and the Olympics and all the other big events.
I know.
yeah,
One last question I
amazing.
have is so you guys are currently raising some funds to build your next generation system. Is that correct? And then
Yeah,
how many systems are you planning on having? You're going to have systems in North America and Europe dedicated.
yeah,
Can you just
yeah,
speak a
yeah.
little bit about the sort of where the business is going
Yeah,
there on that
yeah,
on that front?
we will start with fleet in Europe and in the US. But at the same time, we also see that there is the demands in the Middle East, there is demands in Africa. But let's say we also want to be sure that we have the right skilled staff to operate our system. So we will not do dry hire, but we do power as a service. So
Yeah.
we take over, let's say, we make the smart power plan, we supply the right equipment, and we operate the equipment. So let's say that's a limitation of our growth.
Mhm.
But I think at the end, we are aiming for, let's say, a fleet of 50 systems where we had, let's say, 15 in the US, 15 systems in Europe, 10 in Middle East, and 5 in Africa, and 3 in Australia, whatever. That's a bit, let's say, the scale. So we're not looking at 1,000 systems fleet, but just enough to, yeah, to do, yeah, to reach our goal. And that's, let's say, the top segment of entertainment, live entertainment, and broadcast to show that it can be done.
Mhm. Amazing.
I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Really,
Thanks,
really
Paul.
thank you for all of your work and your team's work. It's really important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
thank you for this nice interview. I really loved it.
Oh, great. Thank
My
you.
pleasure. And for everybody listening, you can go to our YouTube page and our other pages as well on Spotify and iTunes, but you can see behind the scenes my interview with you, Paul, part one, and with Tim, part two, to see the gear and really check it out. I do have to apologize for the microphone was there's a bit distorted, and then they were doing a sound check at the same time. So but the tech is there and the interview is really wonderful too. So thank
Yeah.
you again for that.
Okay. Oh my gosh, Mark. Like, what a great guy.
Yeah, very
Gosh, just
gracious, is very,
gracious,
yeah,
open, seems quite kind, and just wants to do good out
yeah,
there, making it happen with these batteries. It's so great.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's not just the batteries, right? I mean, it's all of the, giving comfort, right, to
Yeah.
the productions as well, that this is possible and that there'll be zero downtime. And I think what was interesting, and I love their, the sort of this the goal, the aspiration of powering the top mega projects, right? The Olympics and the Super Bowl and World Cup and so on. These can have less than zero downtime. They have redundancies across the board. So I love that for show power, and they're setting their sights to the top productions in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like going into this interview, I had that as sort of you know, the premise in my mind. Like, if you can do this, then the
Mm-hmm.
rest, can trickle
Yep.
down. And he totally confirmed it. And that's their aspiration to be that sort of leading shining star in this space with these big events.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to revolutionize entertainment, honestly. If
Yeah.
they can do that, if they can show it, and they're already doing it. That's the
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
So it's just kind of
Yep. They're just
adding
limited. They need more, yeah, more gear.
more gear. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
they're adding more big shows to their portfolio, and so I think this is going to move quickly.
Yep. I think so. I think music is going to be a driver of clean energy systems in production. Film, as always, started it almost 10 years ago. And but they're a little more insular, as I would say, as an industry. So it's nice to see, to be able to go backstage and see the batteries and how open Paul is. And that, I think that's really refreshing for me. And I think we're going to see that, catch on really to all the other sort of large event production groups.
Seems like a force multiplier, you know.
Absolutely.
So
And when you have Coldplay out there, I mean, that you can't ask for better ambassadors for this.
yeah. Yeah. All right, folks, stay tuned. I mean,
Yeah.
there is more of this to come.
Yeah.
Um,
And check out our two-part series behind the scenes at the Global Citizen Show, powering show power batteries, or powering the Global Citizen Show with the show power batteries.
mhm. Hello, entertainment industry. Something I've been working on over the past year with partners U.S. Green Building Council California and Aerith Environmental is the development of the Sustainable Production for Entertainment Certification, or SPEC, as we like to call it.
It's the first certification for the entertainment workforce, and it's now live for folks to sign up.
Yeah, go to the U.S. Green Building Council California website at usgbc-ca.org to learn more about it and to register for an upcoming class. This is a great way to up your sustainability game and gain a professional certification. So this is for you. See you in class. Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Our producer is Colin Miller.